What are we talking? Q1.
Q1. Yeah, so Q1's just finished. We've just turned Q2. I've actually just finished producing all of my market reports for sort of neighborhood pockets all around Marin and San Francisco, just to get a really good sense of what happened in Q1. And the general gist of what happened in Q1 was nothing. Like the amount of market pockets, let's say like Pacific Heights, let's say Russian Hill, let's say Sausalito, that sales, like compared to a quarterly average in 21 and 22, sales are down like 70%.
Yeah.
As in 6 to 12 condo sales in Pac Heights versus a typical a typical quarter of 40 to 50.
Yeah.
I think just general affordability across the entire market, like you can always speak to this, but just general affordability. Say you're buying $1 million condo in San Francisco somewhere, and in a 3% interest rate market, your monthly payment would be 42 to 44 maybe, which is sort of what it used to be, which was equivalent to rents. Now you're looking at 65,
6K, yeah, 6K plus.
Yeah,
it's a big difference.
Yeah, and it's just different. The total volume of transactions is basically non-significant in Q1 compared to anything we've seen, and I'm sure.
Yeah, interesting thing on that is, I mean, because everyone that's the big rise right now. Transaction counts down, so then the media takes that as that this is now
market is down.
The market's down. There's water on board now. The boat's going to sink. It's coming on. But let's just if we stop for a second and analyze the data for what it is. Market transactions are down because we have historically low inventory, right? The amount of homes that are available for sale is at or around 500,000 nationally. The normal average is closer to 1.4 million. 1.2 to 1.4. So we have a huge undersupply of property that's on the market right now. So of course, transaction counts going to be down. There's so few houses to choose from. And most of the buyers that are out there, since they don't have a lot to choose from, they're being a little bit pickier. They're not just throwing anything because, quite honestly, they've got a little bit more leverage and power now, right? Like they get to call a little bit more of the shots. So we're just not seeing things happen as fast. To your point as well, the interest rate variation has definitely had an impact. There's no question. It's hurting affordability. But for those that still can't afford or are seeing it as a kind of a temporary window of opportunity to grab something now, they just have fewer and fewer houses to choose from. Why there's no inventory coming to market? Like, what inspires people to want to sell? They have a life event. They need to move to get into a different school zone or a different job, or they need to upsize, downsize. Those things are still happening in terms of the life events, but it's not connecting with the action of getting them to list their house, sell it, and move on because they don't want to trade in their 3.5% interest rate for a 6. They just can't do it. Now, most sellers, because I talk to them and we try and pull a lot of this data as well as a bank, we ask, okay, you're never going to get that same rate you got because that was historically low. Like that was a unicorn of a rate. Some people even have a 2 handle in front of it. They got a 2.9.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally free money. You will never get that again. So there's 2 ways to look at this. We either find where the sweet spot is of knowing what would make you jump, right? Not at 6 or 6.5, but maybe when we get into the strike zone of 4.4, 4.5 to 5.5. If I can get into that range, I'm okay, and I can get my head around paying a little bit more to go move into something else. Yeah. So most sellers actually have this. If you talk to sellers out there, or if you yourself are potentially one, what that target is. You're monitoring it. Will we get there? Yes, we will, because when inflation cools off in the United States, which it inevitably will, and the data is already showing that month over month, when inflation cools off, so will mortgage rates. So we will have lower mortgage rates in the US at some point in this calendar year, likely in Q4. It's taking a little bit of time. And now we've got this oil fiasco that's going to potentially kick inflation back up, but just only for that sector. But by and large, inflation is cooling. So you'll have that. The other thing that could prompt people, you've got the idea of them wanting to find an interest rate that they'll eventually take, and then they'll move. The other thing you could do as a seller is say, look at this totally different. Say, you know what? I've actually got my first rental completely buttoned up, and it's the house you're living in right now. Yeah. Because everybody who acquires an investment property is always trying to find a way to get that interest so low that it's going to be that you're positioning the property to cash flow and do well, right? If you got a 2 or a 3 something on your home now, you might be actually sitting in your first rental, right? Either put a line of credit on the place, keep that rate, access the equity a different way. Maybe you don't need equity. Maybe you've built up some other liquid savings. Go buy your next house, and now you add to your real estate portfolio. So you don't have to necessarily sell. If you're a seller, like, you may be able to hold on to that, right? I mean, it's a great, especially if you've got really good financing on it. So yeah,
it's definitely appealing. I think it's also opening the door to more people to think like more of a real estate investor rather than a owner occupant, or like a primary residence owner.
Yep.
But I think an interesting thing you brought up too about the randomness, I guess, for people's reasoning for not selling, and something that is so true in the state of California is if it's raining, no one goes to open houses. It just doesn't. Like Q1 was the wettest quarter we've had forever. I hosted at least 2 open houses every weekend, and I can attest the day that the sun came back out, open houses are packed. Didn't even matter what price point, open houses are packed. So I think a funnel, like a fun asterisk.
Yeah.
Q1 data, it was raining the whole time. No one wanted to go anywhere, which is why so many properties didn't sell. And a lot of listing agents sort of told their clients, like, let's wait for 2 weeks. Let's wait till this atmospheric river passes and then we'll list. And then it sort of drug out to today in Sausalito and Tiburon, where it's gorgeous and sunny and we don't have any rain on the calendar at all. I think you'll see a bunch of listings hit the market.
I agree with you, man. The weather is a lot more of a psychological player in this than people give it credit for.
Especially here. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Working with a Minnesota investor right now, and she's sort of analyzing the California market trends. Just like, you guys are ridiculous out there. Like, it makes no sense. Like, it's not a financial decision at this point. It's like do I stay wet and like, do I stay dry and warm type decision, which is so fun.
Crazy.
What else have I got for you? I think something that I really noticed in Q1, obviously down market, obviously less listings on the market. A lot of my buyers were getting much more open to the idea of buying something less than turnkey. Because a lot of these listings on the market, the ones that are still selling quickly, because it's still Marin County, it's still San Francisco, like a turnkey single family home that is priced well, moves in a week and it gets multiple offers.
Right.
One place out in Oakland, I put an offer on a couple of weeks ago, had 78 disclosure packages downloaded in 6 days on the market. So like 78, like there are still these properties that exist that are getting 10, 15 offers, but it's like 1 per neighborhood, 1 per market or city, I should say.
Yeah.
And what that sort of telling buyers is, if you want to compete and put an offer into a pool with 10, 15 other offers, you can, and that it will be this turnkey property that everybody else wants as well. But if you open your search criteria to something that, I don't know, maybe you buy for a couple of $100,000 less and you fix up a couple of bathrooms, like if you don't move any plumbing or any fixtures or anything, you can pretty much do that for $3,000 to $5,000. I think buyers are becoming much more intrigued by the idea of value investing.
I agree.
Their primary.
If they've watched enough HGTV, as well, right? Which that inspires some people, because then they feel like, I could do it too. And that's the good thing about such programming.
Yeah,
yeah, it's doing that. Sometimes it can give people a false sense of security for the big project, but for what you're talking about, all these things are attainable, and the subcontractors are not overloaded with as much work. Yeah,
not working.
So
people they're sitting on their hands.
People are available, right? So this is actually the ideal time to do exactly what you're saying. It's all about creativity. Like, market shifts like this just present different opportunities. You've got higher rates, so there's less competition. So you can get more creative in how you structure a deal, what you negotiate. Or you, to your point, you pull back a little bit on price and you take something that maybe requires a little bit of work, but that little bit of work in relation to the dip in price is so much more favorable, because you throw in 10, 20K, redo a kitchen, couple of bathrooms and floors, and now that $200,000 difference that you took off in price, you've more than made up for it. Like, that's a really good return on your money. Like, so there's all kinds of ways to get creative. When the market's a frenzy, which it gives everyone a real false sense of what a market is. There's nothing healthy going on with people, spending the kind of money that they were and not doing their diligence and buying something, sight unseen, and
Yeah,
all
not
these things. So this is
sight
more,
unseen, all that, all that.
yeah. So this is more of a normal market, but it's also presenting a lot of creative opportunities if you're willing to actually do that. So yeah.
That's actually a good question I've got for you, because normal in the Bay or San Francisco Marin is very unnormal for everywhere else in the country. What I've sort of been hearing is, and this is hopefully a testament to some of the work you do outside of this market, but this feels like more of a normalized market comparative to what normal markets are supposed to be.
I agree with you 100%. The only systemic factor in it that's not quite lending to that statement is just the inventory shortfall. But to your point, and you did bring this up, that'll change. I think the better weather will start to bring some more listings about, as rates get lower, people will find that strike zone of like what they'd be willing to jump and abandon their low interest rate in exchange for. So as these variables play out, we'll start to see a little bit of a normalization in inventory. The other factor that could contribute to that is a shakeup in the labor markets. That's been the one key factor that I'm watching most closely in all the economic data. It's the labor markets. If we see the middle and high end of the market start to have disruption in labor, which has happened, because these are the people that own homes. So they would likely be the ones to need to sell and either move on, downsize, potentially leave the market, leave the state. So that's where we could see a little bit of freeing up of inventory. Definitely something to watch for, going forward here into Q3 and Q4 as well.
Makes complete sense to me, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I appreciate your brain every time I get to pick it.
Anytime, brother. I always love doing this with you, man.